This is the multiple award-winning GardenDC Podcast, the podcast about everything gardening in the Washington, D.C. and Mid-Atlantic region. I'm your host, Kathy Jentz. I'm the editor of Washington Gardener magazine. Our content is aimed at gardening enthusiasts, people who grow everything from edibles to ornamentals, natives to exotics. If it grows in our area, that's what we talk about. Welcome to episode 223 of the GardenDC Podcast. In this special episode of GardenDC, we talk with Debby Ward of Prior Unity Garden all about the new plants and products we saw at MANTS 2025. We skipped the plant profile, what's new, and last word segments this time to devote even more time to talking about all that cool new stuff. This episode, we're joined by Debby Ward of Prior Unity Garden. And Debbie's been a past guest, most recently episode 209 in September 2024. She talked about seed catalogs. And then way back, episode 30. Oh, that was a fancy greeting her, if you heard my little cat. Way back in episode 30, she was one of our first year's guests talking all about seed saving. So we have her back today because both of us got back from MANTS, the Mid-Atlantic Nursery Trade Show that happens every first week of January in Baltimore, Maryland. And this is Debbie's first time at MANTS, so we're going to get some of her first time impressions, but also we're going to hit the highlights of new products, new plants, great things we saw, great conversations we had, and I think we're going to dive right in. I'm going to set the setting, Debbie, and for those who are listening / watching us either on YouTube or Spotify, I have our photo album up from my iCloud photos that I took on my iPhone. And I'll be scrolling through the photos. So if you want to see what we're talking about, you can watch this on YouTube or go over to Spotify and watch it on the video version of this podcast. But of course, we will describe with our words for those of you listening just with your ears. So we're going to set the setting. It was a very icy, cold, windy week in Baltimore. So I'm showing the view outside of our hotel window as one of our first photos. And it was a treacherous, icy walk and along to the 3 or 4 blocks to the convention center. So we were always happy to arrive at the convention center every day without having fallen down and scraped a knee or busted a tooth or something. So normally it's cold that week in Baltimore, but not this cold. So our first evening, we were invited to the PDSI reception at the National Aquarium on the Inner Harbor of Baltimore, and that was canceled due to the freezing temperatures. So we went out with Doug Oster, another past guest of GardenDC, to a local pizza place called Ketchy's, Kechy, and I'm giving them a shout out because it was fabulous. What are your thoughts on Ketchy's, Debbie?
Can't wait to go back. Some of the best pizza I've ever had.
Yes.
Definitely artisan, delicious, fresh, wonderful.
Yep, right in downtown Baltimore, just a couple blocks from our hotel in the convention center, and it hit the spot on a icy evening to have a warm meal, so that was great, and to catch up with each other. So the next pictures I'm showing are of a brand new mural of a community garden along the front side of the convention center. So this was a pleasant surprise on our walk over there, and I'm showing some close-ups of those beautiful vegetables that are growing over row houses or in backyards of row houses depicted on this mural. And the mural says Brush Mural Fest was installed in 2024. Baltimore's hyper-local mural festival created for artists by artists. So I'm knowing that these murals are all over the city. It was great to see a community garden mural in particular on the front side of the convention center greeting us there.
Very cheerful and happy.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, vibrant colors. So then our first morning we attended the MNLGA. I'm going to try to get those acronyms correct. Annual meeting and breakfast. So that's the Maryland Nursery Landscape and I think Greenhouse Association, which I'm a brand new member of. So that was great to get caught up on all the news and laws and new regulations coming in for horticulture and agriculture. And big turnout, big group. They had beautiful live arrangements in the middle of each table. Thank you for whoever's greenhouse provided those. And then there was a new green feature at the convention center. In the photo I'm showing, you can see Camden Yards in the background and a beehive that they've added. So they are adding new green features to the convention center. So that was a pleasant surprise, right, Debbie?
Yeah, it was really fun to see, and I enjoyed that meeting because it was a really great insight into what the nursery folks are dealing with, and it was great to see the beehives in conjunction with that mural to just really see some green thoughts happening in the city.
And the Secretary of Agriculture for Maryland was there and gave a short talk and update at the MNGLA breakfast, which was nice to see. I think horticulture is super important in the Mid-Atlantic economy, but especially, of course, for Maryland and Baltimore to show their support there. So I'm showing now some of the entrance hall, some plants like from Star Roses and others out there, but also huge murals. Well, not really murals. I would call them big,
Yeah,
vinyl billboards. And it shows you who is investing in their marketing dollars because these are not inexpensive. So Bloom and Easy, Garden Debut, a couple insecticides, and Instant Hedge, and a new hellebore line, Goodbye Winter, Hello Hellebore. So Hello Hellebore, Frost Kiss Hellebore in that line. I like that. I like that slogan.
they were beautiful too. Some great coloring.
So the first main entrance garden that you see when you first walk in is Star Roses, which is in the Mid-Atlantic in Pennsylvania. And I was fortunate enough to visit them in person last June for their trial gardens there and many of their roses. But they're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Star Roses, in particular, 25th anniversary of the Knockout Rose. So Star Roses was, I believe, Conard Pyle for several decades and then became rebranded as Star Roses. So, and in the entrance, I took a few pictures and was sharing of Treadwell plants because, of course, my love of ground covers and also their Deer Lirius plant collection, which are plants that deer don't eat. So let's get over to the Star Roses booth, Debbie, and let's talk about the cool things we saw there, starting with this beautiful lilac.
I fell in love with this lilac. It's a compact variety, so it doesn't get like maybe half the height of a standard old-fashioned lilac. And they call it a bicolor. It starts off, you can see the tips with pink, and then it opens up to white. The most fantastic thing, as with all lovely lilacs, was the scent. It has that fabulous old-fashioned lilac scent, but would be great if you don't have room for one of the huge lilacs. It's also hardier in a little bit warmer temperatures and climates. So folks that are maybe even in zone 8 that can't normally grow lilacs could try this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful. I would call it more white. They have a pink blush to it, and the gorgeous big blooms. So many of us have some of the smaller reblooming ones that are more heat resistant, but they're like almost a tiny flower in comparison to that big old-fashioned lilac flower. And this one has that big flower. So then, of course, they have their new drift roses and other roses that they're debuting for 2026 new varieties. They gave a little bit of a preview of those. That includes the Martha Stewart rose. I didn't see a Martha Stewart actual rose in the booth, unfortunately, because I would have loved to smell it and take some pictures, but they had photos and flyers for it. But the rose that they did have and was featured there was, I believe, the Love Me, Loves Me Not. which is a very strong fragrance bloomable collection with a high petal count. It's like one of those filled English roses.
It smelled wonderful.
Mm. And the tag, I'm just pulling up the photo for the tag for the lilac we were talking about, is New Age Pink Flush. It is a Syringa vulgaris. It's in their Scentables collection of bloomables. So, and of course, they're also edible, right, Debbie?
Absolutely.
And a really interesting plant that I saw in their booth is Dampiera. I hope I'm saying the Latin correctly. Purple Oz, and Oz not as in Wizard of Oz, but as in Australia, because this is where this new plant introduction is coming from. So it's a drought-tolerant shrub with long-lasting blooms. I think it was zone 8, though, 8 to 11. So for us, we would treat it as an annual. And I think very floriferous, supposed to be flowering. It almost looks to me like a kind of a tiny purple sage
That's what I
flower.
was thinking, yeah, but it's
Yeah.
really sweet little flowers, though.
Like tiny little purple, almost like the flowers on I was thinking about blue-eyed grass, like
Yeah.
those tiny flowers, if they were stuck all over a prairie sage.
The shape is almost orchid-like, though,
Of the flower itself,
of the
yeah.
flower itself,
Yeah,
yeah.
pretty, really pretty, and just
There you go.
covered in these little flowers. And then, of course, because it's their 25th anniversary, they were giving out rose shaped cookies, which I mistook for soaps at first. But they're very cool cookies. So they showed some of their other new roses, the Winning Streak, and others in their collection. And I want to go on to the
Yes.
bushel and berry side of Star Roses. So Star Roses also does the bushel and berry collection of like patio-sized edible plants. So Debbie, I'm going to let you take this one
Yeah,
away.
I was gonna say, these were a couple of things that were some of my standout, plants. So this is a tea camellia. So the blossoms are not as showy as other camellias, but you can make tea with them and with the new growth, which I thought was fabulous. It's hardy zone 7 to 9, so a little bit for those of us in 7 who sometimes can't grow camellias, we could also grow this one. Beautiful, full sun to part shade. It's sort of a mounding habit of a camellia, only gets 5 to 6 feet. So if somebody wants to add something that's got some beauty and some usefulness, I think this is a really fun opportunity. So I'm looking forward to trying this myself.
So they're calling it Brew dash Tea dash Full. Brutiful is the trademark name, as in brew your own tea. And you can do tea from the flowers, but it'll be very, very like white, light scented tea, like a white tea. Or you can do the leaves, of course. I would do the tender green leaves, but if you want to age and dry and go through the whole process of making your own tea leaves, you could do that too.
Or just fresh, either
Or
way.
just fresh. Yeah, I would just do the tender, fresh, emerged leaves myself. And they're promoting it as a patio container plant because if it does get a touch of, below what it's supposed to in its growing zone, you could pull it in.
Yes.
Mm. And then the other one they had in the bushel and berry line is the passion fruit.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about this one too. It is unfortunately only hardy to zones 9 through 11, but again, this would be a great container for those who love passion fruit. It would be a great container variety to keep in a container and bring in because it doesn't get that tall. It only gets to 4 feet, unlike some of the passion flowers, the passifloras. So it's a wonderful hybrid that way. If you trellis it outside, it can get up to 10 feet, but it's got more of a bush habit than a long trailing habit like the main passifloras have. And
Mhm.
again, you get passion fruit.
Yep.
Yum.
Yeah, again, they're doing this for patio containers collection. And
Mhm.
the name of it is Poppin' with no G at the end, Poppin' Passion. So I saw photos of the fruit Right, Debbie? But we didn't get to taste or see any fruit. That will be we're looking forward to that part.
Absolutely. Looking forward to getting one of those.
Mhm. And then Kristen Pullen, one of the plant scientist breeders, who's been a past guest on the Garden DC podcast, talking about the bushel and berry line of plants. If you want to check out that episode, she gave us that background information, and she's just a font of knowledge.
It was great.
hmm So my next stop was a rhododendron caught my eye because it was like such a
Mm.
short little rhododendron. And this is Ken Janik. And then I'm gonna scroll on to the tag for that, and that's from Everde Growers, and they're out of California, I believe. But it's a rocket rhododendron, so really interesting line of plants. But I want to go on to what I would call more of a product than the plant side of MANTS. So we're always on the lookout for those beautiful plants when we're coming to MANTS because we want some breath of spring, right, on these icy cold days.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's so nice to see them. But the majority, I think, of the booths are some type of product or service for growers or for retailers to carry in their stores for the home gardener. So we came across this really interesting new exhibitor, Pinstrup, and it's a funny name. I believe it's Dutch. And I'll let Debbie explain their product.
Yeah, so found this to be pretty interesting stuff. So what they're doing is, I'm trying to find my notes on it. What they've got is they're taking products, litter from forest floors, and adding that into peat moss and other mediums in bulk to be able to offer that to garden centers, uh, so that and to farms as well, to offer it to, of course I can't find my notes now, to offer it to farmers to enhance their soil. And one of the things that he was talking about was that, yes, they're mixing some of this with peat moss, but he was also talking about how because there's so much air in this medium, it's allowing more aeration into the soil, which is, of course, being beneficial for the root structures of the plants. Because as we know, soil is 25% air. So being able to get more air into your soil by adding this medium is going to be hugely beneficial to your root structure. And as you can see here, these wood fibers, some of which are offcuts from the lumber industry, are allowing that air to get in so that you've got the root structure like in this photograph where you've got lots and lots of little roots versus a plant that's been strangled that isn't getting enough air in, and therefore doesn't have a good root structure. So we're not going to have as strong of a plant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for those of us who are listening and not seeing the images, it's a super light wood fiber. So imagine like, almost lighter than straw, super, super chopped up wood fiber that's optimized for horticulture, and then different peat mixes in it. And the line is called Forest Gold. Is what they're calling it. And he talked a little bit about the ethics of peat, if you want to address
Yeah, and
that.
I found that to be really interesting because a lot of people I speak with are concerned about peat. And he brought up a very good point that we were speaking about, which is that that um, because adding this substance to your soils are going to grow your plants faster and with stronger root structures. It's going to allow for those plants to get bigger faster and therefore be able to sequester more carbon quicker to help, offset is my word, um, some of the loss of carbon from the peat that's being harvested. So, and then for each, depending on your application, you can have just the straight wood, or you can add some peat in if you want. And you can see There in this picture, if you're seeing the video, or otherwise, they've got various different grades from just the wood all the way to higher and higher percentages of peat, depending on your sustainability requirements.
Mhm. All right, so that's the forest gold from Pinstrup. So we were walking down the aisles, and our eyes caught these kind of gas mask looking things, and that was from Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture training landscape professionals on pesticide use and safety, really the safety side of things. So they had different masks and different grades up there. But the next booth we came across was a native plant grower that specialized in collecting seeds from specific ecoregions.
Yeah, these guys were a lot of fun. I enjoyed speaking with them since I partner with our local native folks. And what they're doing is they go out and you can see this map. They've got all these different ecoregions and they specialize in seeds for each ecoregion and offer the seeds if someone wants the seeds as well as starting plants. So if you're concerned for having really specific location wise natives for reforestation or for an your organization or whatever you might be trying to restore, you can get not only flats of seedlings, but you can also get the seeds. And they were really fascinating. And it was heartening to see someone taking so specific care in micro regions with our natives for restoration.
And I didn't capture the booth name. We got their cards, but I think Arch Wild
Yeah,
might be the name.
Arch Wild is the name.
Authentic Wild Genetics. So
Yeah.
you can probably Google and find them easily. And we'll try to put some of these links to many of these companies, products, and plants we're talking about in the show notes when we post that up with the episode. So next booth, we came to a living tree, a lady in a costume. She looked fabulous. And that was with a new exhibitor of Georgian, I think a lumber mill that uses all the leftovers from the lumber processing to make pine fines, pine bark, different mixes of mulches and bark. So they were again a first time exhibitor, and we thought this tree who was posing with you, and of course having great fun with people, was a great marketing gimmick. And I'm showing some of their fines from coffee ground to pine fines to super sized nuggets. And they had dyed mulch as well. Um, and I always have a question of the dye sources, but they weren't able to get us that information, but hopefully they will be afterwards.
Yeah, they said that they would, and that you could contact them if anyone was interested and get the information and the breakdown of their dyes.
Mhm. And many of the booths that you see at MANTS are, of course, tropical plants, either for house plants or for annual installation in the summertime. So one of the new ones that caught my eye was Penang Nursery Inc. and some of the foreign sourced ones. And we're walking through, and then we came across a brand new exhibitor booth with huge piles of squash, pumpkins, maybe some gourds are in there, called Autumn Ornamentals. And maybe Debbie, you can explain their business model.
Yeah, it's an interesting business model. So they grow and source all of these different beautiful plants, beautiful gourds and pumpkins and squashes, and they supply them in bulk. So one of these containers that's got a lot of different sizes and colors and shapes, and they supply them to nurseries, to organizations, to farms for display. So those who are not able to grow all of these different types of varieties can get these ornamentals and offer them at their locations.
They're an auction house, in Pennsylvania, so you would have to go to this agricultural auction house or send a representative or something, and then I think 6 skids or flats was the minimum. So you will have to want a lot. The great thing is that they're sourcing from small farmers and specialty farmers, so you are getting these incredible types that you wouldn't get from somebody who's just doing a mass of jack-o'-lantern type pumpkins. So you're getting all this cool variety.
And you'll also, so if you see them and you see this display somewhere, know that you are also supporting small farms.
Mhm. Yeah, so their branding on it is Autumn Ornamentals is the branding on it. And then I was pleasantly surprised to see that Woman's Work, who is a great mail order company for hats, gloves, everything you need to wear in the garden for protection, plus some other fun gift items as well. They are a long time business, but I think that's their first time at MANTS. So it was a treat to see them and their full line, and they are offered through retail as well. Um,
One thing I will
mhm,
also note about them is a woman with a very small head.
mhm.
They have adjustable hats that actually fit me. So if you
Ooh,
are a woman with small hands or small, find a hard time to find a hat that fits, Woman's Work will
yeah.
definitely help you out.
That's a good, and I think that's even why their company started,
Yeah.
was as alternative because it is so hard to find leather gloves, work gloves, not fashion gloves, but leather work gloves, um, that aren't sized for men. So if you go to, any big box store or something, you're just gonna get I would just wear a man's large because I have long fingers, but it'd still be not fitting very well. But so I tried on some of their leather work gloves and they are fitted to variety of sizes, so you
Yeah,
can
and
try them out there.
they have also mentioned that they've got, rose gloves. They've got a whole full line of different types of gloves.
Mhm. Yep,
So,
waterproof and the reinforced forced index finger on your
mhm.
dominant hand, the most important part of the glove that I always bust through all the time.
Yeah.
So, my next, stop was to American Meadows, who I'm working with, for the Reduce Your Lawn Day, campaign, and Reduce Your Lawn Day is coming up on May 20th, and they have been to the show way in the past, but they were considered a new exhibitor because it's been many years since they've done a booth or been there. So American Meadows, mainly seeds, meadow mixes, lawns. So Mike Lazat there had some of the signage and information also for Reduce Your Lawn Day. So I was happy to see that. And um, down from them was another living tree, Debbie.
Yeah. This one was a whole lot taller. We kept
Hmm.
thinking, he was gonna hit his head, brush his, leaves on the top of something.
Yeah, I thought his like when he went by a light fixture, he might catch on fire on the leaves on the top. It was a tall gentleman with a tall headpiece, and he was really having fun being that living tree. And that was Green Landing Nursery. And part of their booth was Foop, who we talked about last year when we did our Mance wrap up, because Foop was a brand new product at that time, and that's fish fertilizer from collected fish droppings in the water, filtered, and then made a foliar spray, a fertilizer, that sort of thing. But they had an interesting giveaway item, and that was looked like a little matchbook, but it was fishing lures inside.
Yep,
And for those who
yep.
love fish, which I think, the owner of Foop really loves fishing. So that was a pretty great giveaway. So then I ran over to have a quick lunch with the ladies in the landscape group. So we had our informal lunch meetup in the middle of the show floor. Everybody just brought their own lunch or bought it there. And we had a discussion about uh, challenges for our businesses and introduced us, any new members to each other. And we also pulled in some maybe potential members like Debbie, right?
Yep, yep. Yeah, it seems like a really wonderful organization. I know Kathy can speak to it, but they're doing some really wonderful work to support women in the green industry. and green professions. So very excited to learn more and get involved.
Yeah, a fairly young organization. I'm doing some of their program planning for them. They'll be meeting up again at Chessie Green next month, February. So if you're attending Chessie Green, look out for Ladies and Landscape table, information table there, or you can check out their website for Ladies and Landscape. Then I had to run over to 10X, which I do some social media for them, and they are based in Baltimore, and they're a longtime MANTS exhibitor. One of their products that caught my eye this year was their ground protection products, and that's kind of like a plastic grid that you would put over turf or a growing area when you have pedestrian or vehicle traffic, or say you need to bring in a backhoe or something to do some digging or tree work. This would protect the soil, right, and not have it erode or become a muddy mess then.
Which I thought was interesting too, is a possible alternative if
Mm-hmm.
somebody has just like a gravel driveway and you're having to constantly, constantly add gravel. Instead of doing that, you could actually have it be a green space because
Mm-hmm.
that's also got a high UV rating. So it's not like other plastics going to degrade after a year or so in the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, their staple products are the deer fencing and poultry fencing and that other great stuff protecting our gardens. And uh, always one thing, Debbie, that catches my eye. I don't know about you as a newbie, but some of those shaped topiaries. So I'm looking at a dolphin now in one of my photos, and there's flowers, butterflies. So they're custom shaped topiaries, even horses I've seen in the past. And these are just fun landscape items.
Yeah, the dolphin was definitely an eye catcher on the corner there.
Mhm. Yeah, I think in the past, there's been teddy bears and other shapes, and you're going to pay a premium to have somebody else form this topiary for you onto a metal frame or with wiring or sculpture. But um, if you have the money and you want that conversation starter, that would be a great one to have. What else caught your eye this year, Debbie?
I plant-wise, I think that we're gonna get to some of the plant that caught my eye, but I found, generally speaking, that there were, yeah, beautiful, beautiful plants everywhere. But I also was really enjoying that everyone was just friendly and professional and helpful and really interested in engaging in conversations, finding out why you were there, what uh, what it was, how they could potentially help you, give you information. And I just found it overall to be fun. Of course, it's kind of overwhelming because there's so many folks there. But at the same time, some really wonderful conversations and an opportunity not only to form new relationships and partnerships, but also to connect with people that and companies that you're already in association with.
Yeah, so catching up with old contacts, making new contacts. I'm always, of course, looking out for that new exhibitor sticker on the floor in front of the booth and running over to them just to meet the new people, but also catching up with those established contacts, finding out what's new with them, but also what's doing well and stuff. So I got to catch up with Buddy Lee of Encore Azalea fame. Let's talk about Darwin Perennials. This is one of the star new products of the show. This is Digitalis Arctic Fox line. So they have others. They recently introduced Arctic Fox Rose. This is Arctic Fox Lemon Cream.
Yeah, this is, I would say, maybe my first like must-have plant from the entire event. And the reason is one, I confess, I love digitalis. I don't know why, but I just do. And the thing is, for as most of us know, most are either or biennial. And so we're constantly, every year, I'm planting my seeds so that I can have them every single year. They say that this Arctic fox line is a true perennial digitalis. So I am super hopeful and looking forward to trying one or two to test it here in my zone 7 to see if it is a true perennial.
Hmm.
Because if it is, I am a happy girl. So look out for the Arctic fox line of digitalis. And if you've been tired of reseeding, you might want to try this one and see if it's perennial for you.
Hmm. They're listing it as zone, I think it says 5A to 9. So that will be interesting. And I think I have some more pictures of it later on in my presentation, but it's in this photo, it looks almost a light yellow. In other photos, it's more of a cream color. So maybe it fades to a cream, but of course, these are forced in greenhouses, what we're looking at the show. So that was a great point you made, Debbie, about all the beautiful plant material you're seeing in people's booths, because it literally takes so much work to get those plants ready for the show, and I can't imagine the angst and the worry of bringing them here during a winter storm week. Even making it to the show to set up your booth on Monday and Tuesday must have been a real ordeal. And then some of these tropical plants in the freezing convention center, before they shut those back doors, it is so cold in there. And they do keep the hall pretty chilly. You'll want to wear a sweater or jacket as you go through because of maintaining the plants. So also in the Darwin perennials line, what caught my eye was a couple of ground cover related introductions. So Phlox Spring Splash line. So they had a pink and a lilac, and they also had a couple saxifragas. So these cute little blooming moss type plants. Always can find places for them. And then the garden candy line from Plants Nouveau. These are U.S. grown Ito peonies, and they come in some incredible color combinations. Just beautiful, beautiful. So no staking, no mildew. They're deer resistant. They are all about 3 feet tall, vigorous growers, nematode free. And you're going to see these in stores everywhere, because I think this is going to be an explosion of popularity in these rainbow of colors and tree peonies. So not just the same old Bartzella, right?
Well, and if for anyone looking at these photos, the photos don't even do what we were really seeing in the photos justice. They were some amazing colors.
Hmm. And they're very filled in, but you do see the pollen in the middle, but doubles and triples, not just like a single open flower.
Yeah.
So I'm a peony nut, so this is the one I'm looking forward to the most. And then there was a giant queen bee for a native plant collection for the perennial farm, was hanging from one of the ceilings. It was a big blow up balloon type thing. She was so sweet. I loved her. Um, and then there's always the service items that are in the booths. And I don't want to call them boring, Debbie. I'm just going to call them the workhorse items, like.
Yeah, they're not, all the plants are the splashy fun things.
Mhm.
But to be able to have the splashy fun things, you need to have your soil, you need to have your fencing, you need to have all of the maybe less sexy items so that you end up with your gorgeous gardens.
Mhm.
So spend a lot of time with some of those folks too.
Mhm. Yeah, because I feel like you're walking by a booth and they have different trays of gravel. I mean, you try to zhuzh it up as best as possible, but you're not there for the looks and the photos. You're there because you want to actually touch and feel and see the grade and the quality of a lot of these things and talk to the people who are sourcing and making them.
Well, and that was part of what I enjoyed was being able to speak to people about their products in detail. It's way different than just looking at a label in a store than being able to talk to somebody who knows the product, knows how it was built, knows how it was sourced. So that was a lot of fun.
And I'm sharing some photos of some of the uh, horticultural people we ran into, including Tim Babico of Babico outside of White Marsh, Maryland. many people are familiar with the Babico family business. They grow a lot of annuals and other things. So 1875, this is their 150th anniversary. So, knockout roses might be 25, but Babico at 125, that 150, sorry, that is quite the achievement. So I'm just showing off some of their cool violas and other things I've gotten from them. And then another interesting small mom and pop nursery that I hadn't really talked to him before, but I have some of his plants is Tim Brotzman of Brotzman Nurseries in Tennessee, I believe he is. He might be in Ohio. I'm misspeaking, Debbie. He's in Ohio. I don't know why
Yeah, I
I
was
think
gonna
he's in
say.
Tennessee. Um, but he specializes in witch hazels.
Yeah, I was really heartened to meet him and see him because as somebody who also likes to grow medicinal plants, I was really happy to note that there is someone really dedicated to witch hazel because it's such a fabulous plant that grows in environments where sometimes other plants don't and blooms at times of year when other plants don't necessarily. So it's wonderful if you've got a wet area, if you want these yellow blooms, if you want the witch hazel for medicinal purposes. So this was an exciting discovery to me to see that there's someone really dedicated to such a fabulous plant that I think gets overlooked.
And it's a big specialty line for them. And he was talking about the difficulty of having the different sizes ready for market, like from the quart size to the gallon. He does grafted, but also a lot of own root witch hazels. So really interesting to talk to him about the growing side of his operation.
Well, and that brings up another point for listeners who may be going and looking out for trees or looking out for a particular thing. And, remember if a nursery is out of a size in a particular thing that you want, it's a lot of work and they're doing their best. And so it was also a note for all of us to get to know our growers and to just be kind and
Yeah,
understanding.
and order early.
Yes, definitely order early.
Yeah. So because they have to prep sometimes years in advance, especially with a woody plant like a tree or shrub. GardenDC will be back after this short break.
Get low maintenance alternatives to lawns with Ground Cover Revolution by Kathy Jentz. Reducing the lawn is among the biggest trends in homeownership, with an endless stream of homeowners looking for an eco-friendly alternative to a traditional turfgrass lawn. In the last few years alone, over 23 million Americans converted part of the lawn to a natural landscape, and now they're looking to do even more. The biggest challenge to adopting this new ideal of the perfect lawn? Knowing how and when to replace your turf and which plants are the best ones for the job. Ground Cover Revolution is here with all the answers you need, and some you didn't even know you needed. Included are 40 in-depth profiles of plants that are perfect choices for replacing a grass lawn. There are options for sun, for shade, for dry and wet sites, and for various climates around the globe. There are choices that bloom, options that are evergreen, and selections that are deer-resistant. Kathy Jentz has also included an incredibly useful chart that gives you all the specifics on each of the 40 choices for quick reference and to make your ground cover selection process even easier. Whether you want to replace the entire lawn or just reduce the amount of land dedicated to turf, Ground Cover Revolution will help you usher in a new and improved idea of what a beautiful lawn should be. Ground Cover Revolution is available now wherever you buy books, including Amazon.com and Bookshop.org.
I always like to stop by the U.S. National Arboretum's booth where they talk about their plant introductions from the USDA ARS program. Capsicum annum, purple rain. And if you all know me personally, you know that Prince is near and dear to my heart. So I am definitely going to be getting this purple rain pepper. So it's beautiful, dark mottled purple leaves and a very dark red to purple black pepper. It's zones 4 to 10 for hardiness. Although they're listing it as a summer annual. I would bring it in for protection myself, but I thought that was really interesting.
It was beautiful.
Mhm.
Absolutely gorgeous.
hmm Small, compact, definitely great for a container and just vibrant. Just, a great summer and fall, like into fall. If you like Black Pearl, if you like some of those others, the Christmas Light series, you'll definitely like Purple Rain. So they're featuring it as a rock garden plant too. Just thought that was interesting. And then we saw a little bit of their examples from the National Arboretum's herbarium there. They have 700,000 preserved plant specimens there, and you can make an appointment to go see some of those. Then I was surprised, Debbie, at how many growers were from the Niagara region of Canada that came down to MANTS, because of the difficulty, from importing plants across the border, but there are a ton in that area that come down to MANTS.
Yeah, and I think because so many of them are growing in high tunnels and are able to provide just more options for people in the States, they
hmm
were really looking forward to making some new partnerships, the ones I spoke with.
hmm And then, of course, we had to stop by our friend Homer's Twixwood Nursery. And so they're out of Michigan, and they had little samples you could take of started seedlings of Pygmanthemum muticum. So the clustered mountain mint, and that I pinched a little bit of that leaf, Debbie. Oh,
God.
so good.
Well, and it is the 2025 perennial plant of the year.
hmm Yep, and always great to see Homer, and they have a great perennial program, but also great ground cover collection as well. So, um, there's grasses that you can see. Our friend Chris at Must Have Perennials showed us another plant. Remember, I was talking about that Damperia, if I'm saying it correctly, from Australia. Well, she had another plant introduction, and this is from Australia, and it's called Luna. And I don't know if I have the Latin name of this plant. I'll have to see if I can get a close up on the label here. Meanwhile, do you remember? It looks like Gara, and I want to say it's a Gara. Oh, it's a Gazania. Ah, that's what it is. So it's a Gazania, and it had not too many blooms for us to see, but kind of like a straw flower daisy type bloom on the plant.
Well, and the leaves were pretty too, as people can see. They were soft green on top and, a nice fuzzy gray color underneath.
hmm So again, Australian plant, drought tolerant, uh, or
Mounding
drought
habit.
resistant. Yep.
Mhm.
Pollinator friendly. I'm gonna guess, I didn't ask her this, but I should follow up to ask, is deer resistant because of those fuzzy leaves, and that gray silver foliage on there, pollinator friendly. They show it in a big container. She said, even though it says hardiness zone 8 to 11, that she was able to winter it over, and they're in Lancaster County, PA, Must Have Perennials, that she was wintering it over for the last few winters. I'm going to say not this winter. What do you say, Debbie?
Probably not because
hmm
it's been so much colder, but
hmm
it is a full sun plant and it's pretty stunning.
hmm We can go back to showing the leaves and stuff.
There you
So
go.
Luna, very short, easy name, really pretty gazania. And then we uh, saw this cool tool. They're not brand new at the show, Debbie, but they had not registered on my radar, so I'm so glad that they caught our attention this year, and it's called Earth Lifter.
Yeah, they were pretty interesting, this demonstration of really back saving if you're needing to lift a plant not only for transplanting or if you have a huge weed that's gotten out of control that you missed somewhere. And he was explaining the mechanics of how it's wedging out without you killing your back. It's wedging the plant out with all of its roots. So it's great if you've got something large that you want to transplant, Or if you've got, like, I've discovered a couple of weed trees that have hidden in the
Mm-hmm.
back of my property that I'd like to remove without having to do so much labor. And he'd strapped all these weights onto it so that you could really get a feel for how easy it would be to use their tool versus using a traditional digging fork.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like a spade. What I love is that it's red. It's bright red, so you're not going to lose it in the garden. But it almost looks like one of those where you're lifting crates around. Like it has a little back hinge to it, is the best I can describe it. I'm not describing it very well, Debbie.
Well, it's
Like
hard.
a hand cart.
I
That's
would
what I'm
think,
thinking of.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like picture a digging fork
Mm-hmm.
with an extra loop on the back that you
Yes.
can use to leverage out whatever
Exactly.
it is that you want to leverage out
Mm-hmm.
without killing your shoulders or your back, or, just look like a fabulous tool.
Yeah. So excited to try that one out in the
And
garden.
solid too. It's made of really solid material.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a mamby-pamby tool.
Yeah, they were mentioning a dahlia grower, a famous dahlia grower that used it to dig out their 5,000 um, dahlias, and I hope
In
he was
one
saying
day.
in one
In one
day.
day.
You can
So
imagine. Hmm.
that's how much easier it makes digging out.
Yep,
So
they were like, I'm
really
not going
excited to
back.
get one of these.
So I met up with a bunch of our GardenCom colleagues that evening. We went over to the Lord Baltimore Hotel, historic hotel in downtown Baltimore, and we hung out for the evening. So that was great to catch up with them. And of course, some of us had to have those famous Baltimore crab cakes. And I'm sharing a picture of one of our colleagues from Barbara Wise from Crescent Containers, and she's just drooling over those gorgeous Maryland crab cakes. So yeah, come to Baltimore, have some crab cakes. And then we found some street art around the convention center the next morning on our way in of sunflowers and fields that was cheering us up. The first booth I ran into coming in the next morning before our press meeting was Earth Ally and Growers Ally.
And was also a new exhibitor, and he just got this booth, and I'm really grateful that he did. He was a wealth of information, also a really nice man, but he was a wealth of information. And these two ally lines are OMRI listed, so great for organic growers. So we're looking at disease control, insect control, and I'm really looking forward to trying this line because I wasn't familiar with it. And I'm always looking for an OMRI listed or OMRI listed product, as I tell so many folks that are organic growers, that's going to help them in their gardens. So I think this is going to be a really wonderful addition to our defense to keep our gardens insect and disease free.
Yeah, so Earth's Ally would be the one for the home gardener consumer. Growers Ally is for the cannabis trade, at least what it's being marketed for, not that you couldn't use it for other plants.
It just comes in larger sizes.
Yep,
You
larger
know,
sizes, probably different concentrations and stuff. So insect control, disease control. So an interesting new product we came across. And then the ball hort or ball seed booth. They had some really cool new coleus, some new annual geraniums, great colors, beautiful ones that you'll see being introduced to the market. The one thing I got a trial sample last summer from them was the Ageratum Monarch Magic. So it's not that tight little Ageratum annual that you're used to, like that little ball, right, for a bedding plant. It's more tall and rangy and open to fill out a container, and it is just covered in pollinators. And I found that in my garden. I actually put it in part shade in a container to try it out. Still have plenty of flowers. And then, oh, go ahead, Debbie.
I was just going to say that they had this two coleus that were just fabulous. So hopefully you'll be seeing, this one's the Adabo Pink, and I don't remember what the last one's title was.
Oh, it's
The Marble
Marble
Mania.
Mania. Yep.
If anyone comes across the Marble Mania, it was maybe one of the most marbled and vibrant colored coleuses I've seen in a really long time. Vibrant lime, bright green with magenta. For those watching, seeing the images, the photographs don't even come close.
Yeah, my photos are kind of wrecked of the ball booth because they had a giant rack of grow lights in the background, these purple pink grow lights. So everything has a purple pink cast that I took pictures of in their booth. I would love to go back and take some more new ones. And I was going to note on the Ageratum Monarch Magic, it was fairly drought tolerant. I wasn't like giving a ton of water to that container. So they also have the Selecta line, which includes the short compact caliber koas. And then I wanted to point out with Darwin perennials, the Make My Daisy, Happy Daisy, was one of the highlights for me amongst their new perennial collection, but Ball also supports Darwin perennials as well. And then they had a little sneak preview on one of their TV monitors of what's coming in 2026. So this was 2025 on the market, what you could order. On their monitor, they were showing a series of Angelonia, the Guardian Angel program. And I was like, ooh, you have caught my attention. I just am doing more and more Angelonias in containers these days. So next we went over to Cavano's Perennials, so local grower in Maryland of wholesale perennials, grasses, native plants, ferns, and vines. They really do a great native plant production. And they do sell to the public as well, but mainly wholesale grower and supplier. And it was great to catch up with some friends there, including David Culp. And then Debby, I don't know if you went by Zanfil's booth.
I miss Sandville. I was so bummed when I got home and went, how did I miss them?
Yeah. Well, so Zanfil Laboratories make a poison ivy, oak, and sumac wash, and they've always been great supporters of my annual seed exchange events. So I had to stop by and say thank you for that, and just check out their collection and what they're up to. And so always good to stop by, and they give out the free little pocket samples so you can have them like in your coat pocket or purse in case you just come across some poison ivy by accident.
And if you're wondering, yes, it works. My
Yes.
husband gets it really bad and he carries those little packets with him. It works.
And they were mentioning, and we'll probably have them on the podcast in the future to talk about some of the poison ivy prevention tips, treatment, if you have to go to full prescription, what you might do. But they were mentioning that almost all the cases that come in on our customer service line is from garden exposure, not from hiking in the woods or camping or that sort of thing. So he said they were surprised when they started keeping those numbers of how many people were exposed through just in their own backyard. So good tip to know. So then we had our press meeting, and of course Darwin Perennials talked about that gorgeous digitalis, and then Eco Green. I'm going to let you talk about this, Debby. I thought her presentation to the media was fabulous. So it's Eco Green -3 natural plant wash. And it has no oil, no residue, no lasting odor on it.
She did a really fabulous job of explaining what this product is. So if we start off with houseplants, and we think about if you've had a house plant around for a long time and it starts to get dusty or, starts to get a film on it, this product is an enzymatic product. It's using enzymes to eat away that gunk. So you're not going to get some nasty film. It's food, everything in it is food grade. And found it to be just, not only is it going to give your leaves shine again, but it's not going to put anything on the leaves that's going to hamper your plants from being able to photosynthesize, to be able to take in, all of the environmental air that it needs to survive. So there's no residue, there's no lasting odor. It's because it's food grade, it can be used on food crops. So if you're bringing a tropical Meyer lemon tree, for example, in for the winter, you could use it on that as well, because it is all food grade. So, and you don't have to rub, you don't have to wipe, it's a mist, you just mist it on. And she did say, two main things to know about this product. One is to always shake it so that it's, because the enzymes will fall to the bottom. So you want to shake it, and to really pay attention to the application rate and what the mix rate is. And they have some of that information on their website to ensure that you're getting the mix rate correct, and then doing the mist. And that's it. Other than that, it's super simple. And as someone who does have house plants and does go trying to wipe them down, I thought this was a really interesting product. So I highly recommend folks trying this.
So what I found the most interesting especially for orchid growers, is that this will work for mealybugs and won't injure the plant at all. She said they've tested it on African violets, which is another houseplant that I love to grow. And because, we have those fuzzy leaves, I would always be afraid to spray anything foliar mist wise on the leaves. And she said, nope, the enzymes perfectly fine for fuzzy leaf plants as well.
And she also said that it can be used for some as an insecticide for our little black gnats that can happen in your plants.
Fungus gnats.
The fungus gnats,
yeah,
they
and
don't
whiteflies.
Advertise it as such, but because it's enzymatic, when the bugs come, their little feet get the enzymes on it, and that doesn't do them well, so they do not survive. And the product was originally used to get rid of mites on chickens, which I thought was just an interesting little factoid.
Yeah, I thought that was so interesting that a product adapted from the poultry industry, try it out on plants, and it's working. So yeah, so white flies, fungus gnats, mealybugs, scale. Yeah, that was the other thing I was thinking of was scale on orchids. So it's worth a try. And it's just like a fine mist, like just that. Like
Yep.
just don't be like coating the whole. You don't have to coat it. It's not an oil. It's not needing to coat the entire plant.
You don't need to coat. You don't need to wipe. It would be really good for greenhouses too. If you've got a small home greenhouse, good for that application as well.
Yeah, really interesting new take on that being enzyme based. So then there was a electric leaf blower introduced to us, and then the Luna Gazania Digitalis Lemon Cream, and then I thought the most fascinating new product at the show, Debbie, GeoGo Nature-Based Products Extreme Bokashi Compost. And so Bokashi compost making is having a day. It's the newest thing. So if you're drinking, your fermented drinks, this might be your next step.
Yeah, this was really interesting. He was explaining how they go through a double fermentation process with this particular product. And they've got different grades of it, like some of the folks do, where they've got the base product on its own that can be mixed with other things, or they also have it mixed in with other matter, depending on what your application was. And really interesting guy doing this. And it looks to be, he also had a study up about how much more root structure plants are getting with this, as he calls it, the extreme potting mix.
And it's something that you would use as, they haven't mixed in with different grades of potting mix or with your compost. So you would use it in addition to other things as, you're not going to use it as he did do experiments as a straight growing medium. Which I thought was interesting. If you want to grow in straight compost, what that would be like. So he did grow tomatoes in straight growing medium, but he noted that you would mainly do it as a top dressing, or if you were, say, planting a tree or shrub, you would put like a little cup-sized handful or less in with the planting hole.
Or you could do if you're row growing, you can trench it as well. And on his website, he had really interesting studies and images. So if you're somebody who's one of those a little bit skeptical about a new application like this, on their website, they've got some studies and some detail with regards to the outcomes they've gotten and the incredible level of production. Really, really interesting new product.
Yeah, I think that they're doing a lot of science-based research on it. And I was going to try to pull up and give you the website from my notes. So it's GeoGo, so GEO Go, like go or run, GeoGo Soils Solutions. And it is the bokashi compost is a fungal compost with biologically complete. It assists in providing plants the ability to intake and digest nutrients from the organic matter within the soil. So it's not the nutrients for the plant, but it's assisting in their uptake of them. It allows the consumer to use less or fewer chemical inputs or none, and creates a more sustainable environment and healthy soil. So
He was also talking about how they were doing tests of like metal uptake in plants, and that this would assist a plant to uptake less metals
yeah, like
than
aluminum and some of the
the
others. Yeah.
aluminum that you don't want in the plant necessarily, especially if it's a food crop. So this is going to help keep some of those metals in the ground versus it going into your plants and therefore into your bodies if it's a food crop.
hmm Yeah, really interesting. I'm going to be keeping my eye on this for the next couple of years to see how this develops. Not inexpensive, I'm going to say that. So a little bit goes a long way. And so this is a brand new product, kind of in the trial research phase. So, hopefully quantities will increase and prices will drop in coming years. So we walked around the hall and I found what I think is one of the best new plants out of the show, Debbie, and that is the hydrangea that everybody was talking about from First Editions and Bailey Nurseries. It's a smooth hydrangea, so a native hydrangea, so to speak. And this is a picture that I'm showing of the fields growing of other smooth hydrangeas next to this one. And it's called Flowerful. So Flowerful, all one word. And it is just covered in blooms. So like 280 blooms counted on one plant. Can you imagine? So it's the next step up from Annabelle. So think of a shorter, more compact Annabelle with stronger stems. So you don't kind of get that flop sometimes that you get in some of the smooth hydrangeas, but just covered in flowers. So hence the name Flowerful. So obviously great naming for that. And I think this is the one you're going to be seeing a lot of in garden centers this upcoming growing season. So that was fun to talk to them. And I wanted to give a shout out to one of my grower friends because their greenhouse. Why am I saying warehouse, Debbie? Are the ones that are growing the new firefly petunias, and that's Raker Rohrer out of Ohio, and it's hyphenated name Raker Rohrer. So not available to consumers; they sell to the trade, but they are showing and propagating, of course, the new glow-in-the-dark petunia that everybody was talking about last year and couldn't get their hands on. And then I stopped by Ramilton Farm, which is in Adamstown, Maryland, to talk to him about his cover crop program. So they're a tree and shrub grower. That's what they mainly do. But he has some really interesting research and information about cover crops. Did you get to see them, Debbie?
No, I didn't.
So this
At one point, Kathy and I went in different directions.
yes, we split up for a little bit
Yeah.
just to cover the floor. And I will say there's still 9 aisles I didn't even get to. So that was crazy. So I'll ask you in a second, Debbie, to tell me about a few that I missed, I'm sure. But he has an innovative cover crop program, and it's a mix of green manure type plants from pearl millet to cowpeas. And he had some examples growing in there, but he also had some samples of the seed packs. And they're going to host a field day this September, so you can go and see that green cover crop mix. But I hope to also have him on the podcast in the future to talk about different green manures and cover crops. So he shared what's in his mix, and it's really interesting. Not doing just one type of plant, like not all field peas or not all millet. So I thought that was really cool. And I had to stop by and say hi to my friends at Dram. And then, of course, talk to our friends at Mid-Atlantic Pine Straw and Salt Hay. Have you used their product yet, Debbie?
I haven't. I'm hoping to be getting a sample soon to be trying it. I've been speaking about it because I'm excited for the folks that I speak to, especially that grow blueberries, but also those who love their azaleas and rhododendrons and need a more acidic mulch.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes I get asked the question, where do I find pine? I don't have any pine trees for my blueberries. So I'm really looking forward to being able to recommend this wonderful pine straw mulch that's local to our area to help folks out that need that acidic type of mulch.
Yeah, so great for our azaleas and everything else. So it is OMRI listed. And then the salt hay, organic mulch, weed-free. I'm trialing that in my vegetable beds. I'm really excited about salt hay, and it's not salted hay. It's a different type of grass. So we'll talk more about that in future episodes. But he's based in Downingtown, PA, so not that far away. Then I saw my good friend and friend of the podcast, Kelly Billing, Water Becomes a Garden. She's a water gardening rock star and just ran through some final boosts. But I think the last plant I'll talk about, Debbie, is the worry-free willow. And that was at a willow, if I can pull up their name, grower. And it's a coral bark willow that stays like a small shrub size. And that's why it's in their quote unquote worry-free line. So it doesn't take over the world. And I think Willow Bay is the name of the grower. And they're listing it as a deer-resistant plant. And it's I would say this new introduction for 2025 in the willow line for some winter color in those beautiful dark coral to red bark stems is pretty cool. So it's Willow Way Nurseries Inc. And I'm going to ask you, Debbie, to talk about maybe some of the products you saw when we split up.
Okay. Well, there were two. One of my goals for going, because I love seed starting and talk with a lot of people about seed starting, was I really wanted, and we talked about this earlier, I wanted to dig a little deeper into the different types of products for seed starting. So we had talked earlier about the peat moss. Then I came across, and I spoke with a gentleman at the Royal Gold booth, who is the cocoa coir. And they have both, so it's Royal Gold. Royal Gold Cocoa is their website. And they've got two different lines of products, one for the commercial side and one for the home consumer, that have varying degrees of cocoa fiber and peat. Again, depending on what it is that you need or what you want and how sustainable, in quotes, you want to be. I really enjoyed talking to these folks because they're from Humboldt County, California, where I've designed gardens before. So we had a really fun old home week about some of the nurseries up there. But I really was impressed with the level of commitment that this company has to providing a sustainable product at whatever level somebody might need. So as folks may or may not know, coconut plant fiber is now being used a lot as a replacement for peat for those who are concerned about the depletion of the peat bogs, because coconut fiber is a lot more, it can be renewed a lot faster than the peat bogs can. So really was impressed with what he had to say. And you can get it straight or you can get it mixed with perlite. They are OMRI listed products. So really excited to be trialing that along with what may be my new favorite. Hard to say between these two. Came across a company called Pit Moss.
Oh, yeah.
And I fell in love with Pit Moss. This guy was a scream to talk to, but also very excited. So what they're doing is they have taken cardboard, basically 100% organic cardboard. They're recycling to replace peat moss. It requires less water. Again, allowing water and aeration to get to the roots of the plants so that your plant roots are going to be a lot stronger. And we talked some about some of the studies that he's done with regards to that. So you can get this straight, and it doesn't feel doesn't feel like dirt because it's graded so finely. But he also has a line of products where he's adding some level of peat if somebody wants that. He's very proud to be a small grower. You're not going to find this in a big box store. So you're going to want to look for it online. You're going to want to look for it at your local gardening stores. But I really am, it's a 100% US made product. And I love the fact that he's using recycled materials. A lot of us use cardboard, for weed suppression in our gardens. And I love that there's another application for the cardboard boxes that's going to allow us to grow stronger, healthy plants. So I just was, super excited, enjoyed talking to the Royal Gold folks about what they're doing with the cocoa coir, but also loved the idea of this pit moss to give us some alternatives for us home gardeners that are just seed start crazy.
Yeah, and it's PITT, as in Pittsburgh, because that's the area he's from. So Pit-Moss, as opposed to, of course, peat moss. And again, great to hear the sourcing on that. I wasn't aware of what. I just knew it was kind of like a paper fiber material, and super light, and you can use it for containers, raised beds, vegetable growing, that sort of thing. But good to hear it's from organic cardboard.
It's 100% organic and US, made in the US, in his facility.
Good.
Really, really fun stuff for us to try.
And then I stopped by and talked to Mark Hyland at Organic Mechanics, and he's been on the podcast in the past talking about his biochar line for Organic Mechanics. So what he showed new, it was really interesting, is called Second Sand, and it's a finely ground glass. So from picked up recycled glass in Philadelphia, and it's going to be marketed in these little bags of colored glass. So all the blue, all the white, all the green glass are ground in batches together, and then they could be used for terrariums, rock gardens, different craft uses, and it's all coming from this one source that is basically going around Philadelphia collecting trash. I mean, really, it's not coming from a glass um, manufacturer or anything. It's coming from already used on the street or from restaurants or collected from events. So all of this just great glass getting ground up back to almost its original. Glass is made from sand. So you're grinding it back and it doesn't cut your hands. Very smooth, I found when I touched it. So I'm excited about the use, maybe even in like a little Zen garden or something like that. So that would be cool. And people are looking at it, of course, like as a decorative top dressing on their house plants, of course, as well too. And we stopped by and we talked to, I know Debbie, you talked to Sue at Heartwood Nursery.
I did. I talked with Sue at Heartwood, and her main business are hollies. And she had all of these beautiful little holly seedlings there. But we also talked about her being the serviceberry queen. Kathy sent me over there. And I think, Kathy, haven't you had her on your podcast before for her hollies?
Yep, she talked all about her hollies and the Holly Society of America, which had the booth right next door to her booth. But yeah, she has a serviceberry orchard and also extensively growing native plants as well.
And she has a serviceberry festival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's up in Filton, PA, near the Maryland border. So check that out next spring/summer, usually probably end of May, early June. And then I stopped by Kind Earth Growers, who are also Pennsylvania-based native plant grower. Checked out their little plugs of Pygmanthemum, Sedum tornatum, and then they had a really interesting native ground cover to me, Cardamine bulbosa, bulbous bittercress, that I'm interested in trying that out as a ground cover. And then, of course, I had to stop by and say hi to my friends at David Austin Roses. And there was no roses in the booth, unfortunately, but lots of great photos. So I always look forward to, if they have a few roses that they can force into bloom, getting that beautiful scent from the David Austin Rose collection. And then we were like running out of there. Oh, but we can't not mention, of course, Debbie, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange.
Yeah, I had fun. I had to stop by there. Anyone who's heard the previous podcast with Kathy that I've done and knows that I have all these criteria for seed companies. I love Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. So they had a couple of young folks that live on the farm at Southern Exposure there. It was always great to connect with them and see what they're doing and talk with them about some of the favorites that I only find from them, like the Mayan jaguar lettuce that in my display garden is always the showstopper. So if you want a showstopper lettuce, go to Southern Exposure and get their Mayan jaguar lettuce, because it is, and no one else I know has it.
Yeah, I've never grown that one. I need to check that one out.
It's awesome.
Is it
It's
like a mottled dark green?
It's a mottled. It's you've seen the the multicolor. This is a good bright green with the deepest yet brightest maroon stripes. Then way back, flashy trout back doesn't even hold a candle to Mayan jaguar.
Okay, Mayan jaguar. Definitely going to check that out from their catalog. And I, of course, grabbed a catalog to take home to look through for ordering. And they're based in Charlottesville, Virginia. And of course, the great Ira Wallace is one of the big forces behind Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. She's such a treasure. And I think we'll wrap that up for the photo part of our discussion and maybe just ask for your final impressions, Debbie, of your first time at MANTS.
Well, if somebody goes for the first time, I would say be prepared to be overwhelmed. Oh, the mum people. I want to mention something about them real quick. If you are like me and you miss old-fashioned perennial mums, there is Harmony Harvest has old-fashioned real perennial mums. And I was personally very excited to see them. But general
Yeah.
impressions
Well, I was just
overall.
going to say, Debbie,
Okay.
for them that based in the Shenandoah Valley, right? And their website is hhfshop.com.
So
So
if you're,
yeah,
I had a friend whose grandmother had this incredible mum garden, and so I'm very excited to connect with them. But overall, I would say be prepared for more than you expect on every level. So more booths, more people, more amazing opportunities to connect and learn, to make relationships, and um and give yourself some breaks, because and don't expect to get everything in. Just enjoy what you find and have fun.
yeah. Definitely make a list of those you want to hit, but be prepared to stop and see the new stuff along the way, because things are going to catch your eye that you never even knew were going to be there. Wear comfortable shoes, right?
Yep.
And maybe pack some granola bars or something else to get you through if you skip a meal, because I was like, we need to skip lunch to get through all of this. And there's some vendors giving out candy and apples and other things to give you some energy to get through the day.
But definitely fun if it is in your niche and something that you think that you might be interested in. I would definitely recommend going and enjoying who all you might meet.
Thank you, Debbie. So thanks for sharing your first impressions of MANTS, and it sounds like you're going to be a MANTS regular.
Yep, I love it. Thanks,
Thank you
Kathy.
again. GardenDC will be back after this short break.
In the book The Urban Garden by Kathy Jentz and Terry Spate, you'll find dozens of inspiring and creative ways to grow flowers, shrubs, vegetables, herbs, and other plants in small spaces and with a limited budget. Whether you want to grow on a balcony, rooftop, front stoop, or a tiny urban patio, turn your growing dreams into reality and build a gorgeous and unique garden that showcases your personal style while still being functional and productive. With the ingenious ideas and resourceful tactics found here, you'll be maximizing yields and beauty from every square inch of your space. No matter what you grow, the 101 amazing growing ideas found in the urban garden will turn your tiny urban yard into a treasure trove of green you'll be proud to share with family and friends. Buy your copy today at your local retail bookseller or order it online now at Amazon.com or bookshop.org.
Thank you for listening to Garden DC. You can become a listener supporter for as little as 99 cents a month by going to the supporter link in our show notes or directly to podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/GardenDC/support. Another way to support this podcast is to subscribe to our monthly digital publication, Washington Gardener Magazine. To do so, go to WashingtonGardener.com or WashingtonGardener.blogspot.com. You can find Washington Gardener on social media at WDC Gardener on Twitter or X, Instagram, and Pinterest, and on Facebook at Washington Gardener Magazine. And be sure to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Please take a minute to share us on social media with #GardenDC so other gardeners can find us too.